All these rejections from the middle Bollinger Band.
Resistance we're going to need.
If you actually see here, we get
And we'll look for a healthy higher
I
low.
would not
don't have
be
the
eager
bullseye
to
across
enter
the
a long
trust.
trade.
Howdy crypto friends, so the bears have come out. I posted the video yesterday right before a bull spike and then a dump, and we'll look at it all. We'll look at the possible scenarios for the future time frames, Bitcoin, Ethereum, then we'll look at NEO and EOS, then we'll go into story time. But the scenario that we need to be aware of that I've been highlighting for the last couple of weeks, but bulls have not wanted to hear, this could be a bear flag. We could see a drop down and continuation below 5,790. We have to prepare ourselves for that scenario. What am I going to do if this level breaks? What am I going to do if this level holds? We have to have a scenario of what we're going to do in every time frame scenario that could play out. So what I mean by that is looking at this daily chart, the pullback that has now started on increasing bear volume, which is notable. Look at the little decreasing bull volume on that last leg up. We rejected from resistance, we rejected again, and then the bears took over. So this daily time frame has three possible ways that it's going to play out. We're going to just drop straight to a lower low and break support like we've done here in the past. And let's just go over this really quickly. This would be scenario one, where we have the bounce attempt, bounce attempt, bounce attempt, and every time it's been met with a dump straight to lower lows, a dump straight to lower lows, and this is not a dump straight to lower lows at this point. And I don't think scenario one is the most likely scenario. I think it's the least likely scenario, but the scenario that it is would be that we dump straight down to a lower low. The difference is with the previous times, look at the volume. So 18.5K, 17.8K, and today is going to be under 7,000, right around 7,000 coins traded. So way less bear volume. Doesn't mean we can't see another dump day, red day tomorrow and pull back. But the reason I don't think this is likely is because the magnitude of the bounce was more significant than the previous two times. So the distance that the bears have to cover to break to a lower low is more significant this time around than it was on the other attempts. So I do not think this is a more likely scenario to take place. I think it is the least likely scenario to take place, but it's something we have to be prepared for. Another thing to note is look at the 4-hour RSIs. So the 4-hour RSI on this dump got down to the teens, but by the time we hit the bottom, we didn't get any lower than the teens. And then here on the other dump we got down into the low 20s. Here on this dump, we're already oversold on the 4-hour. So even if we do see a bear flag, which is what it looks like right now, if we do drop down and see another leg down, this 4-hour RSI is going to be approaching 20 long before we come to these support levels in the 5,800, 5,700 range. So again, it's because we have more distance to cover that we're going to get to extreme RSI levels on some of these time frames before these support levels are reached. So that's scenario one, a daily chart that dumps right down to a lower low. Scenario two is an equilibrium. We pull back and we form a higher low anywhere between here or perhaps 6,000, let's say. And then we look for a bounce, and then we look for a lower high and a tightening daily range into next week. That is probably the most likely scenario in my opinion. And then the second most likely scenario, scenario number three, is the potential bullish reversal inverted head and shoulders pattern. Left shoulder, head, right shoulder, and then the breakout. So the reason that this would be a potentially viable pattern is because the resistance is so clear at this point. So this resistance has rejected the price now 6 or 7 times in the last 2 weeks and has clearly kept the bulls going anywhere. So this is now the line in the sand that every bull that knows what a chart is and every bear that knows what a chart is looking at this level. If we lose this level, if we break this level, the bulls are going to follow through and a bunch of shorts are going to cover and we're going to get a breakout likely to the mid 7,000 range. Obviously depends on a lot of scenarios and a lot of factors, but I will be targeting the mid 7,000 range. If we do not break this level, bears are very comfortable. They don't have a reason to cover. They don't have to panic. There's no punch in the mouth that I keep talking about that the bears have yet to receive. This is the punch in the mouth line where if the bulls get over that level, they definitely change the tune in terms of the bears having it easy. So we never got the bull cross of the 12 period to the 26 period to the upside. We got close to it, but this dump is preventing that. Why did we pull back? So I posted my video and we saw the bulls show up out of nowhere. And again, it was a very brief move, a 5-minute bull volume spike and a huge upper wick. And from there, the bears went to work. As soon as we rejected from the 6,800 range for the 6th time in the last 2 weeks, and then we pulled back and broke support, the red flag was losing the 4-hour higher lows after that happened. So after the 6th rejection from that spot, we pulled back and we broke this 6,660 support. This is where I exited my position that I had, and that's because at that point, that was our 4-hour higher low because the price made it all the way back to 6,800, so it was very clear that was our low of consolidation. To see the rejection occur and then the break of support occur very shortly after on the 15-minute time frame, you know, an hour later, inside bar, inside bar, inside bar, bear break flush. That's a big red flag. So we had the bulls attempt to get the breakout, they were crushed, and then the bears started to pour on the volume and they broke support. And then from there, overnight, all we had was the hourly chart continually dump. Right now, this is a textbook bear flag. I would absolutely be cautious of another leg down and expecting another leg down because the hourly RSI has cooled off back to the mid to upper $20 range. The exponential resistance is dropping down. The 4-hour time frame absolutely looks like a bear flag, and the bears still have a lot of momentum. There's no bull volume. Look at these bounce attempts on the 15-minute time frame. This is proving nothing for the bulls. Resistance is 6,409, and support is down at the low of the dump, 6,320. So the odds of a bear flag are high. Look at the 15-minute exponential resistance. Ever since the rejection in the bear break, how many times have we rejected from this exponential resistance since last night? I can't even count, but it's a lot. Look at the entire line of rejection, another clear couple rejections, pulled back just under it, another bunch of rejections and grinding against these levels right now. But by the time the bulls get over these 15-minute exponential resistances, if they do, the hourly exponential resistances are going to be right there. And again, we have upper wicks and a very weak bounce at this point. So odds of another leg down are likely. We're going to be looking at the next support of 6,257. And after that level, there is a lack of support. Anywhere, it's just psychological levels. It's 6,200, 61, 6,000, 5,9, all the way down to 5,790. That's the next price level of support if we break 6,256. Does that mean we're going to dump straight down to these levels? No, it just means there's a lack of support, and that obviously is not a good thing for the bulls. So that's the next key level, 6,256. We'll see if the bulls can hold it if we do get another bear flag, which certainly looks likely at this point. Bear cross of the 12-period and 26-period exponential moving averages on the 4-hour time frame is worth noting as well. So the bears are back in complete control. We know that by the fake outs that are occurring. We had that upper wick fake out that marked the top before the dump. Look at this upper wick fake out right here. 15-minute equilibrium on the bounce. Low, high of the bounce, higher low, lower high, higher low, bull break, some stop buys trigger, and then we absolutely dump. A couple things I want to say about this market environment. Number one, it's terrible. This is the worst trading market environment for the short term that I have seen in a very long time. Even the bears with all these wicks. Now that we got a clear direction, the thumbnail of yesterday's video is market direction incoming because we knew we were either going to see a bull break of 6,800 or we're going to lose the 4-hour higher lows. Ended up we lost the 4-hour higher lows. So the bears have it a bit easier right now. But when we're seeing this 15-minute price action with all these wicks, this is not normal trading. And if all of trading were like this, I would not be a trader because you cannot have consistent success with technical analysis when all that wild junk is going on. So that's why we are, I've been encouraging people to move to other markets for a long time, to wait it out and wait for beneficial trading environments. But now that we have more clarity and more direction on this bear break, bears have it easy again with exponential resistance rejections and just a lack of any bull buying support. So what's option number 3? So, I did that. I already did it. So inverted head and shoulders pattern. Bulls are going to have to show up, and the more we pull back, again, the more distance the bulls will have to cover to break that 6,800 level, and it's going to be harder to do. So it would likely require news to just see a clear bull move. We're likely going to have to build a base of support, round out a little bit, and then see the bulls try and head back up. But at this point, with all this weakness, it's hard to imagine that happening. So most likely scenario for me is another leg down, a daily equilibrium tightening range into next week, and then we'll see which direction the equilibrium breaks. If the equilibrium on the daily breaks bearish, it's going to be a weekly bear flag. If the equilibrium breaks bullish, it'll be a little weekly higher low and then a higher high, continuing the bounce. But bears have a lot of favor right now, and I'm back to all cash and back to playing other markets and patiently waiting for for things to become more favorable because this market is junk for short-term trading. I'm not even really looking at anything shorter than the 4-hour time frames at these points. I'll look for details on these bounces and see where the 15-minute exponential resistance is, but certainly not trading, day trading in this environment. So let's go on to Ethereum. So I'm going to be a lot quicker on these other names because that has the meat and potatoes of my analysis for Bitcoin just there. So a clear bear break on Ethereum, a clear spike in bear volume. We lost the double bottom support of 451, and we're trying to find a higher low on the daily compared to 404.22. So we have pulled back very significantly, more than halfway back. We almost saw, let's say, a $90 move to the upside. So 450 would be the halfway point. We've dropped well below that, and the bulls are trying to bounce, but the 4-hour time frame is a potential bear flag. So we have to be cautious of that. The hourly time frame has a higher low of 433.42, and the bulls have to break 443.90 to try and get over exponential hourly resistance and negate this potential bear flag. A break alone is not enough to negate a bear flag. You have to have bull volume behind it because the definition of a bear flag is an upward channel. And in that channel, you often do have little higher lows and higher highs, like Bitcoin on the 15-minute time frame right now, but that's not enough to negate it. You need increasing bull volume and significant follow-through to negate those flags. So it is still a potential bear flag at this point. Next support, no support, aside from 404.22. So the amount of pullback Ethereum seen on the daily time frame, the odds that we just see a bull move and continuation are not likely at all. The odds of an equilibrium are the most likely scenario if the bulls can form a higher low compared to 404. Then we'll look for a lower high somewhere in the maybe 460, 470 range. But we're just going to take it one day at a time and note that the bears have complete control at this point. If we get a bull break on the hourly time frame and we don't get a bear flag in this scenario, we zoom out to the 4-hour time frame and scout out those exponential resistances. So again, it's one time frame to the next, 15-minute exponential resistance. If we get over that resistance, we zoom out to the hourly and watch that exponential resistance. And that's really my guide to see how significant any bounces are. Are the trends changing on any of these time frames, or are we just cooling off RSI levels for the potential of another leg down? NEO USD trying to form a higher low on the daily. Decent lower wick of bulls buying the dip here, certainly more so than these other names so far. Lower high of resistance is at $41. So we're watching that $41 resistance. Anything under 41 is just a lower high. Our new support is 32.80. If we lose that level, we're looking down towards 30 psychological. So the 4-hour time frame, little bounce is underway. Could still potentially be a bear flag there as well. It's just bounced more significantly and would require more weakness to drop down to a lower low than those other names would. Hourly chart has a little higher low, higher high. Clear, but not a ton of confidence for the bulls. Next resistance, 35.70 is the first level. And I would be looking for the same thing here. An equilibrium is more likely than not. We'll see if we form a lower high on any bounce attempt compared to 41. Then we'll see if the bulls can form a higher low compared to 32.80. So this bounce has developed more so than Ethereum or Bitcoin. So I put it a little bit ahead. Let's see what NEO BTC is looking like just to confirm if that is correct. And that is correct. We're seeing the strength bounce on NEO compared to Bitcoin. Very similar to what the USD version is doing. But the bears are going to be in control as long as this daily lower high pattern is intact. So we have to be keeping an eye on that as well. EOS is very clearly the weakest of everybody. Look at the low that we're almost on top of right now. So that low is down at 689. And the price right now dropped down to 706. So very close to that level. Again, equilibrium here is best case scenario for the bulls without news. Low, high of the bounce, trying for a higher low. We'll look for a lower high. 4-hour RSI is very oversold. A weak potential bear flag bounce attempt. The hourly bounce is very weak. No bull volume behind it whatsoever. And testing exponential resistance right now, which could lead to another leg down. Look at the tops of the bounces pulling back just under these exponential resistances. So it's not looking good for the bulls. We can't sugarcoat it. I want the bulls to show up. I want it to run to 10,000. I'll make a lot more money if it does that. But I cannot skew my analysis based on what my bias is. So always have to remain unbiased. And there's just nothing bullish about what's going on right now. So let's get into story time as you all continue to do good things out there. So we're still sticking to the farm in Asheville. Here's some different viewpoints of things. We had the goats And here was the big yard. So this was just a big bunch of grass. We had a silk, and that is a acro silk to play around on, and good workout. But we turned this into a perennial garden where we planted muscadine grapes and raspberries and blueberries, and pretty much just dotted, this spot with maybe 20 different perennial bushes growing all different kinds of fruit, and pawpaw trees, a whole bunch of stuff. Would love to go back and see it in 5 years, because when we planted it, the bushes aren't really producing in their first year or two. They're working on putting all their energy into establishing their roots and settling into their new home. So we did get some fruit, absolutely, but not the copious amounts of fruits that are going to be coming eventually. And now that I've moved on, I'm not going to be able to enjoy that, but someone will. We did have sheep as well. So we had 3 sheep, a mama and a baby, and then the white one. They didn't eat grass as fast as we thought they would. We were hoping to not have to mow grass ever and just have them, rotate them around the yard, but they didn't do a great job of that. And they would also escape and disappear into the woods, and they'd come back in a few days. But the goats and the pigs and everybody was free range for a long time. And that's because they didn't run away. They stuck to the yard, and they would stick around the house, and we didn't ever have to worry about that. That wasn't the case for the sheep, so we did end up giving them back to who we bought them from. And he was happy to take them back because it turns out one of them had it in its genes to self-shed. So you didn't have to have it sheared, it would do it on its own, and that's a valuable gene for breeding. So he was happy to take him back, and I ended up, this is actually my goat mask, but this is the wool from the sheep, and this is actually the baby, so the baby's not in the picture, but pretty cool to still have some of that. Peppers, look at all these peppers we grew in the final year. I was the pickle guy, and the other guy was the hot sauce guy, so he loved grilling his peppers and then grinding it up into hot sauce. We had hot sauce on tap all year round. And one part about having the eggs or the chickens free range is you have to coax them to lay in the coop, but they don't have to. And by natural instinct, they're going to stop doing it. So you keep taking their eggs, they're going to say, hey, so, an animal's taking our eggs. We got to go hide them somewhere. So oftentimes you leave, a fake egg in the nest, so they keep laying in that same spot. But they'll venture off on their own, and these are definitely a bunch of different chickens that found this little spot in the hay, and they lay it there for a while, and then we go and find them eventually. But it's a real-life egg hunt when you notice that the coop is having less and less eggs, and they're laying them somewhere out on the property, on the 4 acres somewhere, and you have to go find it. Here's the coop with the goats hanging out at the coop. So we had a lot of events at the sanctuary. It was the Galactic Sanctuary is what it was called. But the events that we had were, gatherings based on seasonal, whether it's the solstice or Beltane or things like that. We had just potluck gatherings. We had workshops and bands come through. So my buddy, the entrepreneur, one of his companies presses independent artists to vinyl. So he's big in the music industry, and bands that would come through Asheville and play, we'd offer them a free place to stay. Like, hey, you want to come crash here for a while? And they would play shows. They'd play house shows. We'd have people come over. And one thing I really liked about these gatherings is I was used to, college and parties where if you invite a lot of people over your house, people are going to get wasted and people are going to break stuff. We had so many parties of 50 to 100 plus people, and nothing got broken or ruined because I can't remember ever seeing one person wasted. And that's because everybody was just on a different wavelength where they're just, able to control themselves as adults and not get drunk and throw up everywhere and break things. And, we had events that just didn't even have any alcohol at them. And that was fine as well. Very kid friendly. They love the animals. They'd come out and play. And I love playing with kids. And just a lot of happy, fun times on the farm. We'd have big bonfires and drumming circles, and kids loved playing in the hot tub. I love this picture. She scared the chicken, and the chicken flew off, and she thought she did something terrible. And some more children as I'm coming in with the fresh harvest from the garden. Just a good place to live. This is the main room. Tons of sun, huge windows. All these windows were on the other side as well. And another thing we did is we had artists come and stay. And we'd say, hey, you can come and stay for free if you mural up our walls. So this is an epic mural with an owl and a goat and just very intricate details. and it dragged the whole way around the room, and it went all the way to the other side, and just a really cool mural to just, you know, look at and walk through the progression from one little scene to the next. And here's the other side of it with whales and all different kinds of stuff going on. And we always had music going on as well with the music theme. This is a guzheng, Chinese instrument. Very cool instrument, especially if you're not musically inclined, because it's all tuned to the same key. So you cannot hit a wrong note, which is my kind of instrument. And you can play that thing, and as long as you can keep a beat, you sound like a professional musician. And it's just this harmonious magic sound. YouTube guzheng, good luck spelling it. Maybe I think Chinese harp is another term for it, but very cool instrument. And this one came from China. And at some point in my life, I will have another one of those because they are fantastic. Here's another mural we had an artist do. This was just on the downstairs big wall. This thing was probably, 8 feet tall, 8 feet wide. And just some pretty cool artists would come through. We'd have a thing called Farm Jam, where a band would come through. They'd headline Farm Jam. Anybody that wants to come out and play music all night is welcome to do so. And then my buddy would record it and press it into these CDs with some pretty cool artwork. So there's a few of those floating around. I think we had 3 or 4 farm jams. So a lot of fun. This is a melon. We grew as many weird things as we could. So this is a melon, and on the inside, these seeds are like little juicy, I can't even describe them. It's unlike anything you've ever seen or eaten before, but very delicious and juicy, and just a wild melon. There's me with all our starch. There's some squash, some arugula, some kale. And every day, I would start things early in the spring. So every day I would move all of these from inside to outside. And at night, I would move them back inside. So they get the sun during the day. I take them inside to keep them 15, 20 degrees warmer. We didn't have a greenhouse at this spot. And if I could change one thing, definitely would have put in a small greenhouse first year. But worked with what we had, so every day it was just a move in and out kind of deal. And it was good because I could look over the things and see if any aphids were getting at them or make sure everything was doing well. This is some glass gem corn, crazy colors, really cool heirloom variety. Not great for eating off the cob, but good for making flour out of, and obviously good for decorations. The goats enjoyed it. There's all the squash. I was talking about delicatas in the last video. Here's a bunch of delicatas and a ton of spaghetti squash. One of my favorite meals to make is to just take a bunch of onions and spinach and peppers and mushrooms and make a big sauce and then just have spaghetti squash. Very easy to do for a potluck. Now I'll tell the story of George. So the story of George, he was rooster number 1. He was in charge, good-looking dude. We started with, I think, 6 chickens. We ended up having 40-something. So we had more brought in, and then they bred. So George impregnated a chicken. The chicken ran off in the bushes and hid her eggs, and then just walked out one day with 8 baby chicks. So George is suddenly a father. And normally roosters are very protective against other chicks because, that's their territory, and they need to establish their dominance. George was a really nice rooster, and he let everybody chill, and, he was the king of the coop. And then his sons grew up, 2 of them, and they overthrew George, and they kicked him out of the coop. And they would chase him whenever he got close, and he couldn't get anywhere near the women. He was a complete outcast, literally. Couldn't eat with him. I had to feed him separately. So he started following me around, and he would know that if the other roosters were chasing him, he could run to me, and I would protect him. He would do that all the time. And we eventually we had too many roosters, and if you have too many roosters compared to your hens, they really beat up on the hens. Pretty aggressive sexually, and just beat up on the hens for that purpose. And they also, fight with each other if there's too many in a small area. So we had to get rid of some roosters, and once we got rid of his sons and put them back on top again, it was a whole new revival for George, but definitely wanted to see him back because he was a good dude. So that's the tale of George. It was really something right out of like a Roman Empire tale, with his sons overthrowing him and outcast, and then rises back to the throne. But Miss George. Into tomorrow's video, I'll talk a bit about the transition I had to make. So obviously if we have a party house and we have a bunch of people coming over and a bunch of music being played all the time, the question is, how do I get work done? How am I trading stocks? And I'll give you the answer. That's a fun one tomorrow. And I'll put a little video here at the end of this video of just a regular old night with some of the work hands, people that would come and stay and work for us just for free. You know, we give them free room and board. They give us some hours a week, and they were usually musicians. So here's two of them that were just jamming out. This was like a Wednesday night, but just to come home, and there's always so much good music coming from your house, but to just be able to eat your dinner and watch people play music, pretty cool stuff. Thanks again. Do good things. Little check-in on Bitcoin here. Still weak, still a potential bear flag. We're in a scenario where the bulls have to prove themselves because the bears are coasting on easy street, and the bulls have to say, nope, we're shifting momentum back in our favor, and they certainly have not done that yet.